Sometimes physics platform games can be so frustrating and so difficult and so ridiculous in their jankiness that they no longer become funny or comedic or satisfying when you actually complete something. You're just grateful to get the thing over with. And so it's quite difficult to get that balance between jankiness and comedic with frustration and reward, and to kind of know where you are in that Venn diagram. One of those games that I think have got it right in the centre is Robotry, though. It's a 1-to-4 player physics platformer that sees you play as these weird TV robot faces. It's never quite explained exactly what they are, that have been brought to life by these little tiny astronauts who are busy conducting weird scientific experiments. What they do is they give you first one leg and then two legs, but no jump. And so what you've got to do is use these Robotry legs to propel yourself a little bit like a frog, to kind of pounce yourself around and hop and roll and jump and skip around all of these different levels whilst balancing your weight, whilst keeping yourself out of like goo and like impossible situations to get yourself out of, and then completing various different challenges as you go along for the ride. This game then expands out to being much more parkour focused than a lot of other physics-based platformer games, because your foot is almost like a sucker. So when you hit on the ground, you're kind of steadfast there unless you've really not got a strong foothold where you've been able to put your foot firmly on the floor. And so what you can then do is swing yourself around, because it's mechanical rather than like flesh. You can swing yourself around the edge of ledges to get yourself back up again, but it also means that you can then clutch onto and hang on to anything that's orange, basically. So this becomes like ceilings, it can become specific wall handles, or indeed entire walls in general. And so compared to a lot of other physics-based platformers, there's more climbing and swinging involved in this game than I've found in pretty much any other physics platformer that's out there to date. I think that works quite well, because when you're climbing and you understand with your two legs what you're doing, because it's very simple to be able to kind of just rotate around with each leg on the analog stick to kind of go forward and swing yourself around, the physics makes sense. It's that I don't have a jump button, so I need to be able to propel my square box around, is where the jank comes in. And so it's like controlled jank, and that's why I think it's got this Venn diagram of frustration, comedic value, and crazy physics right, with that satisfaction in the centre. The game can be played in single player mode, and the vast majority of my experience was in single player, because I found that the challenges continued to evolve and bring new things along to the table every couple of levels or so. But I also really enjoyed the fact that it wasn't just purely parkour. It added in some puzzle elements too. And I want to give a specific shout out to the fourth world, where you are trying to push other animals into water so that they can be in their natural habitat. And what you're doing with this is using all of your parkour expertise of swinging and climbing and bouncing and hopping, and using your legs to push now various different squidgy animals through like tight gaps, or cranking levers so that they can be put on like weird little goony booby trap rides, so that they can then be shoved into their different natural habitats. And it's not often that you see a physics platformer then totally redesign its whole gameplay experience around specific puzzle formats. But Robotry does it, and it lands it really well. And for that entire world, it felt like I was playing a totally different game. And there's got to be big props for that, because it genuinely felt different, unique and interesting, and provided much needed variety into a game that can feel quite stale if you don't have something dropping every few levels or so to keep you tested and on your toes. The game is also playable in multiplayer. And so what you can do is two different modes. So you can each have a robot in 4-player mode with controlling two legs each. But what you can also do is then carve out those 4 robots so that each player only plays with one leg. That allows you to have 8 players playing at once. And my goodness, I'm sure that that would be absolutely crazy. I didn't have 8 people to play it with at this specific time, so there's a few bits of gameplay footage on here where I'm playing with someone else and we've got 1 leg each. I found it to be almost more trouble than it was worth, but it was more hilarity of us getting it wrong rather than actually getting the satisfaction of doing it right. And that was why I found it like really, really good to play in single player mode rather than just being like, over here, and like screaming and then laughing and then like raging secretly internally at the other people that I was playing it with. But that's par for the course for these styles of games, and if you enjoy that and love that, then there is tons of that here for you, because there is an awful lot of levels in Robotry. The game is apparently also going to be having some additional modes coming post-release, including additional challenge levels and also some versus mini games for up to 8 players to play with as well. So look forward to that landing when it does. But what's here at launch already is already a decent, good game that I think anyone who enjoys physics-based platformer games will absolutely love and enjoy. Yes, it will be slightly more towards the easier side of these physics-based platformer spectrum, but I don't think that's a bad thing, because so many of these games are just designed to infuriate the player and make you rage. This feels like the right level of jank and the right level of variety and expertise required to get to the end. If you really want to go nuts, there's tons of hidden collectibles for you to go out and find that require extra challenge and difficulty for you to get. But just getting to the end of each of the levels is a decent achievement that I think you can definitely take relish and satisfaction from, and I certainly did. Shout out as well to the great visual design. I found the music to be quite fun as well, and I also enjoyed the fact that the little orange aliens that are doing all the experiments at the background are slightly unhinged. So I very much enjoyed that. You've also got this central hub world that opens up with loads of collectibles so that you can pimp out your robot in however you want to style them. They're bought from all of the different blue crystals that are dotted around the levels that you can collect as you go. They're quite plentiful and they replenish each time you play a level, so you can buy most of the collectibles quite easily as you unlock them. And then the hub world becomes bigger and bigger as you get these additional like hidden collectibles from chilled astronauts that are just hiding, trying to have like a break in the corner of a level somewhere. I didn't necessarily find much to do with these opened up extra spaces, but it's there for you should you want them. And that's probably about my only downside, is that going after all these collectibles, I didn't get too many of them, but what I was able to unlock didn't feel worth it for the effort that I was putting in. But that is the tiniest blip on what is an absolutely great game that I would recommend to anyone that wants a physics-based platformer. Written review over on higherplanegames.com. Any comments or questions, leave them down below. Let's get legless. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.